USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, March 13th, 2024. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets today. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. And Jim, today we look at the semifinal round single elimination in the Big Ten.
And joining us now in USCHO Spotlight, good friend of the show and an analyst with the Big Ten Network. That's Paul Caponigri. And Cappy, this is a fun time of year, and it started last weekend with an upset that I don't know if people saw coming, but it was something that you knew was possible, and that was Wisconsin going down to Ohio State. I see you have your Buckeye shirt on here, so I know this is an audio.
I didn't have a chance to wear it proudly this year, so.
But hey, take us through that first round and just kind of what you saw, especially in that series.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin's been a great story, obviously, all year. But the one thing they didn't score a ton of goals. They didn't give up a ton. But they didn't have like a go-to line really that could score for them. And the games they lost this weekend, they gave up the first goal. And then I think BC is the only team that has a better penalty kill than them this year. And they gave up a power play goal in each game. So, the playoffs sometimes do those things, right? Where, everything is under the microscope, and a couple things that went well from all year didn't go well from in the series. And the Buckeyes played well at the end of the year. They swept Wisconsin at home 3 weeks ago. They split with Michigan State in East Lansing. So they were playing their best hockey late in the year. So I think couple those things. I'm still thinking, I didn't think they had a chance on it, to be honest, but they got the first goal. And then you could see kind of, teams sometimes that haven't been there before, they didn't handle pressure well, Wisconsin, and Ohio State's confidence grew, and boom, you have an upset.
This we were just talking a little bit about this off the air, and maybe not specifically Wisconsin, but now the Badgers, they're going to qualify for the NCAA tournament. They're going to have 2 weeks off here because of the Big Ten playoff format, a single game each week in the semifinals and then the finals next weekend. That's going to be difficult for a coach to find things to do for 2 weeks in practice. And maybe they have some things that they really need to work on, but this time of year, players don't seem to want to practice that much. So as a coach, it must be frustrating just to try to keep your team's focus.
Yeah, he could call Guy Gadowski because they did this last year. They went out in the first round to the Buckeyes. The same, the closer is 4. I think it was the 3-6 matchup. It was weird that Notre Dame or Penn State finished 6th, I believe, and still made the NCAA tournament. But they went out in the first round and then were off 2 weeks, and then they were the host team in Allentown, and they were 1 goal away, an overtime goal away from going to the Frozen Four. So I guess they beat Michigan Tech with it like 8-1 or something like that. So when you lose a series like this, you didn't play well. It's almost like, okay, maybe we need a reset. Probably not 2 weekends worth of one. Coach Hastings probably doesn't want that, but maybe, it'll be deemed as like a fresh start for him. I guess that's the way, Coach Hastings can kind of regroup and get him going in the right way.
You mentioned the fact that Ohio State has beat Michigan State recently in Mon Arena in East Lansing, and now they're back there this week in Big Ten semifinals. Try to handicap that one a little bit for me.
I'm trying. It's Michigan State to me. They've been a really solid team. There was a weekend at Penn State. They went into Penn State and just blew their doors off. And I looked at them. I'm like, this is the best team in the league. It's not even close. And then the next Friday night, I believe they lost at home to Michigan 7-2 or 7-1. So I'd say like 80% of the year they've looked like the team you want them to look like, but at times they've had some head scratching losses. Like the Buckeyes lost; they lost 6-2. It wasn't a 3-2 game where Michigan State dominated and a goal, Turnus, won him the game for the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes beat them pretty soundly in that game. So it's really hard to know. Plus, they're coming off of the weekend off. You never know how you can start sluggish or you can start with a lot of jam. So it's going to be very interesting to see early. I think the Buckeyes obviously need to get off to a great start. If they can get that first goal is huge. But they want to, their confidence right now is high. So anything early, if they don't get momentum their way, could break that confidence. If they do start well, then that confidence continue to grow. And then, Michigan State rust might be a fact. But I think in the grand scheme, if I were to handicap it, I'd probably go with Michigan State just because they've been the better team throughout the year. They have the depth. And then Trey Augustine's been a big game goalie. He's 18 years old, but he's played in bigger games than most goalies that have played 3-4 years in college. So he'll be prepared in the Nets.
I also have to ask you about the other semifinal. Two teams that did hold serve last week. Number 11, Michigan. Number 6, Minnesota. Those are national rankings. They're going to face off. That's about as big of a big time matchup as you can get in this league. Many people maybe going into the league thought that was the Big Ten finals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The talent, the skill, the speed in that game is, how many first round draft picks you have in that game or top 3 round picks. It'd be like a BC BU game. It's kind of an interesting one because Michigan has been fighting, right? People have been doubting them. You can see it in the way the voting has been on in the polls is they've been going down, but now they've won. So they're starting to get up. When they get doubted, it seems like that's when Michigan kind of rises with, the talent that they have. And then this one's interesting for Minnesota side is because, yeah, they're the favorite. They're at home, but are they really? Because the last 2 years in the Big Ten championship game, I've got to imagine it's going to be about the same type of atmosphere. Mariucci should be a sellout around 10,000 fans. Michigan, that doesn't seem to bother them. They just went in and beat them the last 2 years to win the Big Ten title. So Michigan's the underdog, but are they really? I don't know if they are. There's a lot of returning guys from that team that remembered what they've done the last couple of years. And there's a lot of guys in Minnesota remembered that want to turn it around, and all the fans. I think it's made it a good rivalry is when Minnesota gets beaten multiple times, especially at home. Finally, their fans, I think, have a little more of a distaste for another team in the league besides Wisconsin. And so I think that makes it's going to be a great, the primetime matchup. It's the second game of the doubleheader we have on Saturday night.
More with Paul Caponigri when we return. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Where are my hockey fans at? Present. Welcome to Fandom 101. It's NCAA Ice Hockey Championship time when the hottest teams in the country face off under one roof. Be there to see your squad hoist the ultimate trophy overhead. The NCAA Men's Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th in St. Paul, Minnesota. Attendance is encouraged. Passion is mandatory. Buy your seats today at ncaa.com/mfrozen4. Class dismissed.
We're back with Big Ten Network analyst Paul Caponigri. Paul, looking at the Big Ten in general, it seems like it took the league a few years to get its feet under it. People were still lamenting the demise of the WCHA, and you had some of those CCHA rivalries go away. But looking at it now, it seems like the league emerged post-COVID with some good rivalries and really with some momentum. Is that how you see it from being a little closer to the league?
Yeah, I think this is what, when they envisioned the Big Ten, when I was playing, we were envisioning it, the 10 years before it happened, like, wow, this league would be, because at that time, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, and Michigan State were all really good teams. And then right when it happened, when the Big Ten became the Big Ten, Minnesota was up there, and Wisconsin was there, but Michigan and Michigan State were a little down. And so you had that coupled with, yes, Minnesota was not happy with losing all their rivalries with North Dakota, St. Cloud, Duluth and whatnot. So it took a couple of years. The recruiting thing has been good. I think the biggest thing is the coaching. The coaching is elite now at this point. Now that you've added Adam Nightingale and Mike Hastings, I just don't know where. I think other coaches were happy and sad at the same time. Like, oh, great to have these guys, but oh no, it's going to make things tougher on us. And I just think the league's in a really healthy spot. Bob Motzko's done an unbelievable job since he took over. I remember doing a playoff game there. I think it was 2019. It was Michigan and Minnesota in the first round, and there were maybe like 800 people at the games. So that was kind of an eye-opening experience at Mariucci. And I think it's come a long way. And now you're just seeing it. The winnings come, and now there's just really one thing left for the Big Ten to do, and that's to win a natty. And I think it's happened sooner rather than later. I don't know about this year, but the league's in a really healthy spot. We talked about it off air. Was need that 8th team though? That would be nice. And I just I gotta think there's schools around the country, the Big Ten that are seeing success like this and would want to jump in.
Certainly, there are teams within or programs within the Big Ten that could start a team. In the Big Ten, you're going to have the situation we've seen in the NCHC where some very good teams are going to be near the bottom. Is that going to be a difficult situation for some of those teams, or are we going to see it cycle through and rotate a bit?
Yeah, I mean, wow, it's tough because some of these teams are getting some high-end recruits, and then they're lucky to have them for 2 years. Or a team like Ohio State had a couple blue chip guys that they don't normally get. They usually rely on their depth, and they leave. Mason Loriah and Cole McWard both left for NHL contracts, and they had some other guys graduate. They had 15 new players at Ohio State this year, so maybe that's why late in the year they're having their success. It took them longer to gel, but it's interesting. Notre Dame. How long is Jeff Jackson going to, keep coaching? He's been there 20 years about now, and his coaching staff's been together that whole time, which is incredible. But the last couple of years, they've been kind of hovering in that 500 area. So that'll be an interesting one to watch. And Penn State's been, the program's 11 years old, and they've been they're a couple shots away from being in a Frozen Four. I think it's going to cycle. Now though, with those coaches at Michigan State and Wisconsin to go with Minnesota and Michigan, it's going to be interesting if those 4 are going to stay at the top and those other 3 are going to have to battle. But I mean, you're seeing it now, right now. We had an upset right in the first round. Anything could happen. So I think the Big Ten's, it's going to cycle, but those top 4, I don't think are going anywhere. It's just a matter of what all the other ones are going to rotate in with better years.
Looking forward to the NCAAs. We know Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, and Wisconsin are in. Ohio State, if they can pull off the upsets, could make it 5 teams in the tournament. Last year, the buzz in Tampa was, watch out for the Big Ten. They're just going to dominate college hockey, especially after that first round of the 8 some odd goals per game average. What do you see looking ahead for these teams in the NCAAs? Is this going to be the year where one of them finally makes it through and gets a national championship?
You know what? I think it would be not funny, but ironic, because look, all props goes to Quinnipiac. They deserved that game. They outplayed Minnesota, but Minnesota was as loaded as I can remember. 3 NHL defensemen right now, and 2, then with the 2 guys up front, Cooley and Nye. I just, I thought that was it. But the funny thing is that these teams aren't as good as those 2 teams, but they could win the national championship. All 4 of them could make a run. So it's one of those things where the timing, the right matchup against the right team. They all seem at one time or another, they've all beat each other. At times they look like each one of them looked like the better team in a game. So it could just flip. I think the consistency of winning 4 in a row is going to be the question because it's tough to do that. Obviously, only one team does it. But yeah, I don't think we're going to see what happened last year again. That was just incredible. As the guy that watched them all year, I'm like, I couldn't believe what they did in that first round. I don't think anybody could. I mean, you've never seen. I don't know if that's ever been done before. But I like every team does a little something better, different than the other to get there. I could see it happening, even though they're not as good as what I thought Minnesota was last year. I could see it happening, but BU and BC, man, BC especially, they kind of remind me a little of Minnesota last year, how they're just kind of destroying teams left and right.
Paul, before we let you go, let you give a plug. You will be at a regional with ESPN again this year. Where are you headed?
I'll be in Sioux Falls. So I'm excited for that. I haven't been there since my last year of juniors when I played in Omaha. It was Sioux Falls, first year in the league. So I got that taste. And ironically, Bob Moscow was the coach there that year. But looking forward to it. Like the arena looks beautiful. It's a hockey town. Hopefully, we'll get some teams, Minnesota or North Dakota, possibly Omaha, if they get in. And then maybe I'd love to see, a team, maybe Maine or someone come from the East to get some East Coast taste. But I'm looking forward to it. I'll be with Jason Ross Jr., young play-by-play guy. I've done the last couple of years, done some Big Ten games with him. So it'll be nice that we've had a little camaraderie before this, so that'll help with the broadcast, I think. So looking forward to it. And NCAA tournament's the best. Really fortunate that they asked me back.
And we'll hopefully see you in St. Paul at the end.
Yeah, if a Big Ten team is there, I will be there, harass that team all weekend.
That's the way. Well, Paul Caponigri, we always appreciate getting the chance to talk to you, talk some Big Ten playoffs here. It's been an exciting first round. Maybe this weekend we get some more of a little upset flavor. You never know. I know you've got the Ohio State blood yourself, so that one would be exciting.
Yeah, it will be. I hope we get an overtime game. I love a playoff overtime game. Nothing like it.
That's the Big Ten Network's Paul Caponigri. Jim, it is interesting to see how the Big Ten has progressed. And it's funny to think that a league that may not be as high flying with its top teams this year compared to last season may even have a better chance in the NCAA tournament. Yeah,
you never know. And, as we're recording this, I'm starting to kind of put together bracketology, and I look, and there's a possibility you get 4 teams in, and all 4 could be in different regionals, and that doesn't always work out math wise. So imagine if you get that situation and you get some upsets. Obviously, a team like Wisconsin, wouldn't be considered an upset, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Now everybody's thinking, oh, Wisconsin, they're out. They couldn't be that good. You never know. The number of times I've seen, we talked about this on our Monday podcast, the number of times you see a team, really fail in their conference tournament and then make a run in the NCAAs. It happens all the time. So, Wisconsin and Michigan, Minnesota, I love the way Michigan State's playing. So I think every one of those teams is going to have an uphill battle in the NCAA tournament. It's not going to be likely that you're going to have a number 1 seed unless Michigan State can win the Big Ten and maybe pop themselves past a team like Denver or North Dakota and get the number 1 seed in the regionals. But they're all likely going to have to get to a Frozen Four from a number 2 or a number 3 seed.
Michigan is still not 100%. There's still a few scenarios that could keep the Wolverines out. It's really amazing to me, especially, we watch the pairwise every year, but this year just seems so tense and volatile along the edge. It's pretty crazy. This weekend may make the difference on whether they get in.
I think so in many different ways. Obviously, there's 2 leagues that really could move that cut line right now. One being the ECAC if Quinnipiac is unable to win the championship. The other is the Big Ten. And if Ohio State can come out of nowhere as the last place team and win the Big Ten championship, and listen, they're 2 wins away from doing that right now. I think they're 2 really tough wins for them, but I think that Ohio State's playing some of their better hockey right now. If they find a way to get there. There will be teams that thought they were almost locks for the NCAA tournament or thought they were in really good shape a month ago that suddenly might find themselves on the outside looking in. Big ifs. But, Derek Schooley's been pushing all season that he thinks the cut line will be 13. It can be as high as 12. That is if you can be top 12, you'll be safe. But the cut line could be 12 if you have a couple of upsets here. I'll still see when they actually happen. But, the fact that Ohio State stayed in and knocked out Wisconsin, it would have, that would have been a moot point by now if Ohio State had just gone down. But you keep these hopes alive. And I guess I shouldn't actually say there's only two leagues. Hockey East has an entire tournament to play here, as does the NCHC. So you could have some upsets there as well.
Oh boy, if you move that cut line up by 3 or 4, my goodness, a lot of good teams are going to be left home. I guess I would just say, if I'm Steve Rollick, I'm pointing to February 23rd when the Buckeyes beat Sparty 6-2 at Munn. Can lightning strike twice? We'll find out this weekend. This podcast is sponsored by the NCAA Men's Division I Frozen Four, April 11th and 13th at Xcel Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Visit ncaa.com/mfrozen4 to get your tickets today. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and this has been USCHO Spotlight.